The Philadelphia Eagles injury report, the final one, came out before Cowboys week. Sunday's matchup is a big one for the Birds. Looks pretty good, but Jalen Hurts, is he injured? We'll get into that and more coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louis DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We're brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. They help you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions do apply. It's Dallas week. The Eagles head to Jerry World this Sunday, 4:25 matchup. The Eagles trying to make it 5 straight wins to get to 7-2. With Washington week looming. Thursday night next week, that's going to be a really big battle with the 7-2 Commanders. But, they can't overlook, even though it's Cooper Rush under center for Dallas, they can't overlook the Cowboys, who are a desperate team and are fighting to keep their season alive. The good news for the Eagles is the Cowboys will have a backup quarterback in, and when you look at the injury report for the Birds, they're a full go with pretty much everybody. I didn't even realize this until just now. This will be the first time they have all their weapons happy and healthy since the season opener against Green Bay, which is crazy. I don't think that really computed with me before.
And I think the guys that are going to be the happiest are the coaches, because they're going to be able to go into a game where your message, and Nick Sirianni, he has to really lean into this. Guys, we have to win Sunday to be able to make Thursday matter.
Yes,
Thursday doesn't matter if we don't win Sunday, because Washington, if they go and beat the Steelers all of a sudden, who, if we're talking about a look-ahead spot, Washington probably more than Philadelphia is in that position, because Pittsburgh has a lot to play for. Dallas doesn't have much to play for, but it is a divisional game. These are the games that you and I always say, throw out the record book. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. Over at FanDuel, it's a 7-point line, which I said last week I hated that 7-point line. And you're on the road in a place where you haven't had much success in the last 8 years.
They haven't won since
Cowboys.
2017, I guess.
Dude, it's sad.
World.
It's sad. Bad. It really is. And weird things happen. The 2018 no clear recovery game. This is a game where Nick Sirianni, if you were ever to preach that we have to play 60 minutes, we can't let off the pedal, we cannot even think about that Washington game until that clock hits 0, this is the week. Because going down to Jerry World and slipping up, where Jerry would love that. He would love for the Cowboys to go on a little bit of a run. Marcus and I were talking about that yesterday. How Cowboys would it be for them to win like 3 of the next 4, and all of a sudden they're waiting for Dak to come back to potentially make a run at the playoffs? But whoa. The Eagles, they got a run of their own that they want to get going on. You got to get to 5 straight, actually 6, Lou. Like, this is the closest equivalent, in my opinion, from that 2017 season where you truly went on that middle of a season run where you were beating every single team that you were supposed to handedly.
And need this
just
more
another
than
game too.
And you need this more than then, because you didn't have a 7-2 Commanders team in your division to battle with. And you mentioned slipping up. It's funny, we talk about the injury report. The Eagles look very healthy, but Nick Sirianni there was an awkward exchange today with reporters where he had mentioned Jalen Hurts and how they were being precautious with a potentially, cautious with an ankle injury that did not show up on the injury report. But Nick said, as we saw on the injury report, the media kind of double checked on that. Nick almost looked at the PR staff, kind of shut down a little bit and said, never mind, it's just a rest day. Gino, I hope, and again, this is the time of year where everybody's dealing with a little bit of something. I hope he was just mixing Jalen Hurts up with another player. But if he did slip and Jalen is dealing with what sounds like an ankle injury, hopefully it is just that wear and tear of, 8 games into the season, everybody's battling through something and it's not serious, or it's not something that's been lagging for weeks on, because there's been so many reasons the Eagles' offense has turned things around since the bye week. But I think one thing, a main thing that's caused this turnaround is how decisive and explosive Jalen's been as a runner. And I really hope that can continue. So if this is a real injury, I hope it's just a little nagging thing that, everybody's dealing with right now this time of year.
I believe Jeff McClain had let it be known that it's been a couple weeks that Jalen has been dealing with this injury.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have fooled me. You could have fooled you, Lou.
I was going to say, he looked good against Jacksonville from a running perspective.
He's great the last 4 weeks running the football.
So clearly it's not something from last year, right? Like something like last year. Because last year it was so obvious how hurt the guy was.
It was debilitating for him last year, where it completely took away his run game. And hopefully it's a completely different injury from then, and it's not like something that got re-aggravated. But if he has been playing this well, running the football, and there is some sort of knock on him, I would be terrified if he does get healthy, if I'm the rest of the teams around the National Football League. And I think that's one way that the Eagles can win this football game too, is just continue to lean into the ground game. I think going against the Cowboys, who clearly don't have the horses up front, make them have to make those decisions at the mesh point between Jalen Hurts, between Saquon Barkley, because the worst thing you can do, Luke, even if he does have that injury, is pull him back and handcuff him once again. You just have to let him go and let him be him. Does he have to be careful taking some of those hits in the open field? And that was a big collision in the end zone on that touchdown where he falls over Fred Johnson, for sure. But if you want to be the Hulk, you have to let the Hulk run wild sometimes. And sometimes you're going to get a knock on you. And it seems like everybody's banged up. A.J. Brown has an injury. DeVonta Smith. I mean, that injury report, Lou, even though everybody was a full practice, there was 15.
I was going to say, there's a lot of names. Yeah, that gave me PTSD to 2018 and 2019, where the entire injury report is filled up with the graphic because of all the names listed on it. But yeah, I agree with you. Even if Jalen's a little banged up, be cautious. Obviously, don't take unnecessary hits to get extra yards. Slide when you can. Get out of bounds. But I don't want to see the Jalen Hurts of the first 4 weeks that almost never wanted to run or never get extra yards. And he wasn't that decisive about like when to be full speed as a rusher and when not to be. And that indecisiveness, he was still getting contact, but he wasn't really gaining many yards on the play either. So it was kind of the worst of both worlds, where I'm with you. He's the Hulk. Like, this was what makes him great. So, yes, he's going to get banged up in this way more than other quarterbacks. You kind of just got to live with that, since that's the style of quarterback you want. Be safe, but you still have to unleash that style of him. Because, again, there's so many reasons for this offense's turnaround. The under center play action looks, running the ball with Saquon Barkley, the breakout of, pretty much everybody on offense and on defense as well. But the mobility of Jalen, like, it can't be understated how crucial that has been. And it's, you say it every week now because we've been able to. The 12-on-10 aspect is such a huge advantage, especially when a team like the Jaguars last week are playing man coverage and they have their back turned to Jalen. I mean, he was dicing them up with his legs.
And I think Mike Zimmer's defense is just another step in that direction, that they're going to give you opportunities to run when their back is to the football. And if you look at the tackling on tape for the Cowboys, it's not the best this season. There's going to be opportunities to make plays, but the way you limit yourself is to just take this back a couple seasons ago. If you remember that game where Gardner Minshew was filling in that stretch between the Saints and the Cowboys, where they're trying to run some of this like mesh draw stuff, but with Gardner Minshew, and it's like, well, if you're a defensive player, you're just going to key in on the back, and you know that Gardner Minshew is not a threat to you. Well, if you take Jalen Hurts' legs away, that's the quarterback that he becomes. That's what makes defenses not be able to hesitate for a split second, which has allowed you to get some of these huge explosive plays. And that comes because of Jalen Hurts and what he can do in the run game. But if this was one of those things where it was under wraps for the last couple weeks to the point where he didn't even really need to go on the injury report, and he has shown that he can run still, I wouldn't fret too much at all.
No, I was more nervous, Gino, if the injury did come from like that touchdown run where you mentioned he hurdles over Fred Johnson. If it was a new injury, I'd be a little more concerned. But yeah, as you mentioned, if Jeff McClain's right and it's been going for weeks, I didn't really see a debilitated Jalen on Sunday.
No, and I don't think we're going to get that either in this game of all games. He wants to play, but it stinks that we're not going to see another outing of Jalen versus Dak, We might never get this matchup ever again, Lou.
You know what, Gino, for this one, good, because I'm so sick of playing in Jerry World and not winning games. And
we got to get out of there with a win this week.
Yes.
We have to.
I almost wish they would have held off Kelly Green week for this one, since Dallas is wearing the white jerseys.
Broke it out on the road?
Just to have the vibes really good heading into Jerry World, man. But
I wouldn't mind the Kelly Greens with the old school cowboy whites. That would be a heck
cool
of
combo.
a jersey matchup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bring back the 90s rivalry when it was super heated. But I think the Eagles are in good shape, even with Jalen Hurts' ankle injury. Everybody full go in practice on Friday, including all the weapons. Again, this is the first time A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Saquon Barkley will play together all in unison since week 1. Who are we going to bet on of those guys? LOE3 presented by FanDuel. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
This episode is brought to you by our friends over at Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more just isn't in the cards. I love collecting. That's some serious money to drop. If you see behind me right in the studio, I got a bunch of cards behind me, got even more in all my drawers. And thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of the retail price. Every card that is listed was hit from the last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all the possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. I love Arena Club because I'm a huge college football fan. I like to get these cards before these guys get going and make it big, just so maybe you hit big on one of these cards you could sell in the future. And Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent. A full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL, code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your purchase.
This episode of Locked On Eagles is also brought to you by Hims. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints, Viagra and Cialis, and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for those uncomfortable doctor visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option for you. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in a discreet packaging for free. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon, which is in all capital letters. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Prices vary based on product and subscription plan. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, and watch each and every day on our YouTube page. However you find us, thanks so much for tuning in. It's time now for LOE3 presented by FanDuel. Gino and I got 3-player props each we're riding with Eagles, Cowboys. Gino taking a look at a record from last week. I went 1-2, only hit on that anytime from DeVonta Smith. You went 1-2 as well. Crawling back in this thing for some relevancy, right? I think slowly but surely. I'm feeling good about this game because all the weapons are back. And that's been the thing is like 1 week we have just DeVonta and Saquon. 1 week it's just Dallas Goedert and Saquon. This week A.J. Brown's back, but Goddard's out. And it's just kind of been musical chairs with those weapons. It'll be interesting to see how, now that everyone's back, they've all had big games without each other in the field. It will be interesting to see, like now that everyone's back, the share of targets and touches. I am kind of interested because we haven't seen this since week 1.
And I think one of the things that has really affected us as well in terms of our record is the fact that these guys are leaving the game too. I mean, A.J.
That
Brown,
too. Yeah.
both of us needed a reception over for him, and he leaves that game last week
Both
after
of my
starting really hot.
Gino, both bets I lost were because of A.J. Brown. So
yeah, one of mine was A.J. Brown as well.
Yeah.
I can think back to that Saints game that DeVonta Smith was well on pace to hit the over in terms of yards. All of a sudden, he goes out as well.
Yep.
The thing is, you continue to ride the hot hand. And I think these guys against this defense, all of them has shown in different moments that they can dominate against the Cowboys. And that's why it's like even Dallas Goedert, who we haven't seen play in a long time, this is one team that when he does play against them, he has shown up in the biggest of ways.
And Dallas Goedert was on pace. Like, he was having a career year the first month of the season before he went down with that hamstring injury against the Cleveland Browns. So I really do hope, obviously this offense still is going to run through A.J. Brown and Saquon Barkley for the most part, but got to make sure there's plays where, hey, this one, like DeVonta Smith is the first read. Hey, for this one, this play is for Dallas Goedert to do what he does best. Like, obviously it's going to be hard to feed everyone in this offense when they're fully healthy, but I do hope Kellen Moore takes the time each game to make sure they're involved and play calls are going to the strengths of everyone. Because if you have all of these guys clicking, it's impossible to stop.
And I don't think Dallas has the guys in the middle of the field that can even defend a Dallas Goedert. Like, they don't have the safety play or the linebacker play to defend Goedert when he's
fully out. And their corners have been banged up all year too.
I want to take advantage of the middle of the field as much as possible in this game.
Yeah.
One, to just give Jalen even more confidence in that area. And two, just to show Kellen Moore that there's more areas that we can continue to work within this offense to just continue to make it even better. I mean, we haven't seen that intermediate passing game truly come into fruition yet. And you can involve everybody in that. Like, Jahan Dotson can get involved in that game. Same with Saquon Barkley, which we saw a little bit more last week. But each week, continue to add more pieces to the puzzle, because at the end of the season, when teams have to figure that puzzle out, and fingers crossed they're all healthy, Lou, you're going to have a couple reps with having these guys all together.
The one guy that's pretty much guaranteed to be involved is, of course, the star running back, Saquon Barkley. And, Gino, your first bet has to do with Saquon. He is going to record, according to you, 10-plus rushing yards in each quarter, which is at plus 145. And I like this. Look, if Jalen's a little injured, I think they'll want to lean more on Saquon. And Barkley's having a historic year with 925 rushing yards already. So betting on Saquon, I think that's where a lot of our wins have come from this year.
I think when it comes to Saquon, you can kind of guarantee that on the first drive of the game, or at least the first scoring drive of the game, he'll probably have 10-plus yards. And the last drive of the game that they either have to score on or weather out the clock, he'll have 10-plus yards on. So that kills two of the quarters right there. The Eagles have been really good going into halftime since the bye week. They've been really good taking the ball after halftime since the bye week. And I think the game plan, I said this to Marcus yesterday, you just roll through this offensive line against the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, if they have to throw Mazie Smith out there, he is quite literally the worst graded interior defensive lineman in the sport, according to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, man, that was a bad pick. And Saquon Barkley, by the way, I mean, he leads all running backs in explosive 20-plus yard rushing yard plays this year. So 10-plus yards in each quarter. Like, sometimes that only takes one run for this guy. A lot of the time, it only takes one run. So I like that bet. My first is going to be for DeVonta Smith to score a touchdown anytime at plus 230. DeVonta has a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. And, Gino, I think that will continue against Dallas. He's always a good player, but he's very good against Dallas.
And you probably have to believe that when AJ's on the field, Trevon Diggs will probably give him that star treatment, follow him around the field. But whoever they're going to throw out there at the other cornerback positions, we'll see. It has been I can't even pronounce his last name. It begins with an E on the other side. Emma Warrior I can't pronounce.
I'm not even going to try.
I'm terrible. It's bad, that one, but not in terms of like it's a great last name. I just can't pronounce it. But take your chance with DeVonta Smith any day of the week, because he has done it against star caliber guys on the outside, and he is one guy who, when he's in rhythm, Lou, it tends to come in bunches. He is a guy that when he gets going, he's not one to slow down very quickly. And the thing about him, consistency. He has been consistently going for 60-plus yards every single week. He's nearly guaranteed to be around the end zone, if not score for you every single week. And at plus 230, I thought you were lying when you sent these odds over. No. That's crazy.
And I get
it
because
go with that.
Yeah, and Goddard's returning, so maybe that's why it hurts his odds a little bit. A.J. Brown back in the lineup. But, he has 4 touchdowns in the last 4 games against Dallas. Like, this is just kind of what happens. He has a lot of success against Dallas. So,
trend,
I'm going to continue riding the hot hand with DeVonta Smith. Your second bet is the Eagles to have a successful 2-point conversion.
This is any team to have a successful 2-point conversion.
So that's at plus 280, and considering how often the Eagles went for 2 last week, I think you were right to put your money on this.
This is one of those things, law of averages, right? You know that the Cowboys are probably going to play a little bit more aggressive in this game, knowing that it's going to be tough with Cooper Rush to get down in the end zone. So when they do, they'll probably be either 1, chasing points, or 2, wanting to score as many points as they can in those trips. But the Eagles, Nick Sirianni is the most hard-headed son of a gun when it comes to these 2-point conversions. He's gotten that big brain. If we score in the 2-minute drill going into halftime and we have the timeouts, I'm going to try and hard count them and call that timeout. He's done that in the last 2 weeks. And if they get that penalty, even if they put an extra point through the upright, Lou, he'll take it off the board and potentially go and do it again. So with those odds, I think it's too good to be true. They're going to have to absolutely see a 2-point conversion in this game. And if they don't get one that hits after a certain point in time, we got to go back to the drawing board and work on some of those 2-point plays that we've drawn up.
I think I'm going to ride with you on that bet. I think I'm taking that one as well. My second bet is going to be A.J. Brown having over 80 receiving yards. That's at plus 124. Brown is a full participant today in practice. Avoided that scare from last game against Jacksonville. And I think, Gino, that's the one consistent variable in the passing game. I said Saquon Barkley is the guy that's always going to be involved because he just gets the most touches. But A.J. Brown's ceiling at this point feels like if he plays the full game, and he was on pace to have over 70, 80 yards last game too, if he plays all 4 quarters, the floor, I should say, feels like for Brown 70 to 80, and then a really good game is over 100. So I don't know. I just felt like at plus 124, I like those odds, even with all the mouths to feed.
As good of a player as Trevon Diggs is on the other side of the football, A.J. Brown is just a freak, man.
It's not like Diggs has taken him out of games before.
No.
I mean, I'm just thinking of that Sluggo route in 2022 in my head, just on loop.
I mean, if you got to get him in the open field, it's one-on-one. Who do you trust to make the play? Trevon Diggs to tackle A.J. Brown, or A.J. Brown to break open and go for the touchdown?
Exactly. Their corners play so aggressive, too. Like I think there's going to be opportunities for double moves and big plays. So that's why I was comfortable taking a Smith bet and a Brown bet. My final bet's actually a parlay of DeVonta and Dallas Goedert, both having the over on their reception lines, which for DeVonta Smith is 4.5. For Dallas Goedert, that's 2.5. Gino, that's at plus 216. So I don't really think that's a lot to ask for. I think both of them, realistically, most of the time, Dallas Goedert gets over 2 catches, and DeVonta Smith gets at least 5 a game.
That was my parlay last week, was DeVonta and AJ to both go over 4. DeVonta got that. I think you're hit and it you right were going to hit the
other one. So
AJ was on pace, and this is another game where Dallas Goedert get him the ball in easy situations and allow him to make plays after
Mesh
the catch.
Routes.
Like, he doesn't have to have 11 or 12 yards per route run. This could be catch the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, like you said, on a mesh drag route, and just go make one guy miss and get home, man, and continue to feed him. He's a tough guy to bring down, especially against Dallas, where he's kind of had his way. And DeVonta Smith, all reliable at this point. It's like it's like a dog that you have trained to go fetch a ball. If that ball's in the air, DeVonta Smith is going to get it, and nobody else is going to get that football.
Your final bet. The Eagles will score an offensive touchdown on their first drive. That's at
I'm
plus
chasing this thing
200.
so hard, man.
I like it. It's going to hit eventually, and they've been a lot better starting games fast on offense the last few games. Maybe this is the shoe to drop.
They scored a field goal 2 weeks ago. Last week, they got a touchdown on their second drive. We need one to hit. I bet this exact one last week at plus 200. It's even better odds. But this would be a great game to throw all the history away of what has happened since 2017 going into Jerry World and just saying we're a different Eagles team. Let's just start hot, stay hot, keep our foot on the pedal, and just score points on the first drive of the game so we know you guys can do it because you're so good at everything else. They're historically bad in the first drive of the game. And
it's crazy.
I believe they are currently the worst team when it comes to EPA on the first drive, but
and then
after the first drive, they're the best team in
Yeah,
football. Yes, it's crazy.
That's insane. But the Eagles are getting everybody back on offense, so this is as good of a time to do it. LOE3 is always presented by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Coming up next, we're going to wrap up the show talking a little bit more about Dallas Goedert. He is healthy, and that's huge for this Eagles team as he was having a career year before he got hurt in 2024. What does the future hold, though, for Dallas in Philadelphia? We'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. They help you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn has 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Every Friday edition of LOE3 is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you want to open up the app as a first-time user and say, I believe Jalen Hurts is going to score an anytime touchdown, put $5 on it, and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if that bet win. So in the middle of the game, like I said, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com today to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, we're wrapping up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast, getting you ready for Dallas week, Eagles Cowboys. This Sunday in Jerry World at 4:25. The Eagles are fully healthy, a full go for everybody in Friday's practice. That includes Dallas Goedert, who has missed the last 3 games with that hamstring injury that he suffered against the Cleveland Browns, and that's huge. Again, Goedert was having a massive start to the year. Started off a little slow against the Green Bay Packers, then had 2 really nice games in a row, was involved as well against Tampa, I'm sure would have been against the Browns. But then, as things always happen with Dallas Goedert, you're left wanting more because the guy just can't stay healthy, and he missed 3 more games. And that's, again, kind of in the theme. When he's on the field, he's elite, but he's not always on the field. Something about that 2018 class, him and Devontae Maddox specifically, but, do you think with this, this is who he is at this point. It's years of this. So at this point, you got to call a spade a spade. Do you feel comfortable? Obviously, this year he's a massive part of the offense still. Do you think moving forward you're going to be comfortable giving him a contract extension considering the injuries? Or is this more of a 2018 situation where you're saying, hey, in the draft this year, early on, maybe we start thinking about that replacement? Even as good as he is, he doesn't stay on the field.
Best ability is availability, and he just clearly isn't the one that is available all the time. And one of the reasons Zach Ertz was so great, and I think we took it for granted, was how often he was on the field. Like, how big and influential was he in the successful years of Nick Foles and the successful years of a young Carson Wentz? Dallas Goedert, he hasn't really had that with Jalen Hurts, and we get into those discussions like, why isn't Dallas Goedert getting those targets that he should.
Yeah.
What did we talk about with Dallas Goedert, or not with Dallas Goedert, with Jalen Hurts in regards to Grant Calcaterra starting to get more targets? That trust factor. And when you're not there every single day, every single game, yeah, I'm sure that trust can fade a little bit, but I don't think it has anything to do with them from an interpersonal standpoint. I just think it is a football thing. Like if I can't rely on my tight end to be there, I'm going to look.
You get into a rhythm with people, yeah,
without a doubt. And for the future, I think you invest in a young guy like that comes into this draft. Like a Terrence Ferguson from Oregon would be fantastic. Man.
I saw a mock draft the other day that had the Eagles taking a tight end in the first round, and I don't hate it.
I don't hate it because of what they want to do in 12. And I think these next 10 games or so will be a really good breakdown of what Nick Sirianni and company, and if he continues to do what he's doing this year, he's not going anywhere, frankly, but right. Kellen Moore and company, they clearly want to run the ball in 12. They clearly want to pass the ball out of 12 so they can make things different. They want 2 tight ends on the field so they can present you run looks and pass the ball, present you pass looks and run the ball. And you need 2 really good guys to do that. If Dallas Goedert comes back healthy, would I be willing to extend him? Not for the money he wants. I still think he wants to be paid like a really good tight end, and he's still young enough to be paid like a really good young tight end. They paid Zach Ertz at that point in his career as well.
Right, at 29, yeah.
It's tough because this is where you really have to separate what he does on the field from who he is as a human being. Because as a human and like what we've seen in the past, he's done enough, man. Like he came in after that Super Bowl, got off to a hot start, and really was kind of the missing piece for you. But did he ever step up to the Zach Ertz level that I think a lot of us wanted him to get to?
Because he has the talent, if not more talent than Zach Ertz. You know, he should have. We had a whole discussion on an episode this offseason where we're like, why Dallas Goedert's been very, very good for the Eagles. And some of it's not his fault. He was behind Zach Ertz for the first, 3-4 years of his career. Mm-hmm. They were in a more spread the ball around, Doug Peterson style of offense. So it was hard for him to get that Zach Ertz kind of target share. But at the same time, a lot of it's on him too. He's been injured a lot because we kept saying, this guy has so much talent. Why has he not had seasons where he's seen as a top 3? Mm-hmm. He's had maybe 1 or 2 where he's seen as a top 5 tight end, but not nearly enough for the talent. And I think there's probably a middle ground where at 29 years old, I'd be okay with, he's a free agent after next year, so he'll be 30 years old by that point. I'd be okay giving him like a 3-year extension and doing what you did with Ertz, where you draft a rookie in the first, second, third round that you have. You need
your Dalton Kincaid to your Dawson Knox like the Buffalo Bills now.
I think Dallas Goedert will command a lot on the open market, and I just don't know if the Eagles will be willing or able to compete with that at that point. So,
and I don't think you should. He's one of the guys you don't overpay for either, because you have to be available. And
you try, obviously, right, Gino? Because he's a damn good talent when he's out.
Of course.
Just because he's hurt, I'm not saying get rid. I don't want him on the team anymore. If it works, it works. But because of the injuries, you can't say, hey, we're going to pay you Travis Kelce money. You just can't do that.
That's what I was probably going to say. It's almost like a couple of years ago, it was, is Goddard in this Travis Kelce discussion? Is he in this George Kittle discussion, which I think he was closer to as a younger player?
He was getting there.
Now I think he falls closer into where a player like a Mark Andrews, for example, right now. Like, I don't think Mark Andrews is living up to what he's getting paid, and I don't think he's going to he's not going to get in Baltimore probably what he would get on the open market, much like a Dallas Goedert.
That's what you need, Gino. You need your Isaiah Likely to your Mark Andrews.
There you go. Like, I love Mark Andrews as a player. I love Dallas Goedert as a player, but those guys do get banged up, man, and the Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurts, like when you're scrambling around, you just want to see a tight end in the middle of the field that you could rely on. Grant Calcaterra, I keep mixing those two up, and I probably will for the rest of the time, but Grant has figured that out the last couple of weeks, man.
He's played well.
And if you could find a Grant Calcaterra in the 5th round, are you going to pay a guy top 7 tight end money? That's the toss-up, but obviously, Calcaterra doesn't have the ceiling that Dallas does. And
no, again, Goddard, when he's healthy, Gino, he's
one of the best in the sport. Yes.
He's in the Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, even when he's healthy, is in that tier too. But you can't put him in the 1A category because of the injuries. I think, like you said, he's 1B, 2A with Andrews and, I think players
absolutely
of that echelon. But it's an interesting conversation. I think he's very important, though, moving forward for this year and for next year. Again, he really does add a completely different element that you don't have personnel-wise, even with the slow rise of Grant Calcaterra. So I really do hope, though, he doesn't fade away in the offense with everybody healthy like he has in the past. Like Kellen Moore, they need to add an emphasis. Like, we need more. Let's get him screens. Let's get him open in the middle of the field, like you mentioned. Run after the catch opportunities. Some deep balls, too, like he had in New Orleans. Like, he's a very important player to this offense.
You're going to have him and Grant Calcaterra at least for the next 2 years. I think right now is a really good starting point to start to figure out how we can implement both of these guys at the same time that we have Saquon, AJ, and DeVonta. Because, like, I'll keep saying it, as good as they are in 11 with those two guys on the outside, they want to run 12 personnel because that is the ultimate chessboard play. When you can have those tight ends out, Kansas City, they live out of 13 personnel sometimes. That's what they did to you in the Super Bowl. When you have those big guys that can be blockers, can be guys that go catch the ball, and can do so many things from so many different spots, it's almost like having that safety on the other side of the ball that can really do anything for you. To a degree, is like Dallas Goedert, almost like your Reed Blanket, not your Reed Blankenship, like your Cooper DeJean, where it's like we need to use him matchup proof on offense. We're going to get him favorable matchups each and every time, and he could play out of every single spot. He could play out of the backfield. He could be a lead blocker for you. He could play inline. He could play outline. He could play bunch, but he has to be on the football field. It's always a huge if with him. And we keep going back to it, Lou. It's never 2019. Did he answer that question? No. 2020. No. 2021. It's
we 2024 it this year too.
Every single time. That is one show we do every single summer and every single year, and it never changes.
No, without fail. But he does return to Dallas this Sunday, and it's a good time to have him back because Washington week looms, and they're trying to make a run here in 2024. Starts with the Cowboys on Sunday, 4:25. After the game, Gino and I will have you ready for the post-game show, hopefully recapping the Eagles' 5th straight win to get to 7-2. Until then, we're going to thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen and watch each and every day. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase. Thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.